Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
He's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. We're working towards a weekend brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and madness has begun. We'll talk about it a little later on in this hour. Are the Saints contenders or not? We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. Of course, LSU and Oklahoma will kickstart the SEC baseball weekend this evening. Joe Healy from D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team is here in 30 minutes. Chris Blair, the voice of the Tigers, in 2:15, so an hour and 15 minutes from right now. We've got plenty to do, so let's crank it up with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
Tonight, LSU will welcome Oklahoma to the box, and it'll start 6 straight conference games at home for the Tigers. Of course, LSU off to a 1-2 start in league play, and it's been a bumpy 3 weeks for the Tigers. They've lost back-to-back weekends after a brilliant first 2 weeks of play, and they're searching for answers, and they need to come pretty quickly because these are 6 very important games, starting with the one this evening at 7 o'clock at the box. I want to tell you a little bit about this Oklahoma team. I did a fair amount of research on them over the course of last night and into this morning, and have a decent handle. We're not necessarily going to preview the weekend in its entirety, although you'll draw some points from it. I'm not talking about their Saturday starter. I'm not talking about their Sunday starter. We're here to talk about tonight's game because we have a show tomorrow. I told you earlier this week I kind of like Thursday games when LSU has them. I don't want to have 10 of them, but I kind of like the Thursday games because it shrinks the week. It feels to me like Friday. You had basketballs bouncing at 11 o'clock in the morning today, and then you've got a baseball game tonight. It just kind of feels like a Friday a little bit, even though it is not. So we'll have a Friday show tomorrow, and we'll preview what is to come in the weekend. But this is basically a look at tonight, and it's a huge game for LSU with Case Nevins heading to the mound. But let's talk Oklahoma. This is an Oklahoma team that is 17-4 to this point. They are ranked in the top 10. They have a 2-1 conference record after taking 2 out of 3 from Texas A&M with a win in a rubber game back on Sunday of last week. Their biggest weekend of the season was the first weekend of the season. They went to Globe Life Field in Arlington. They crushed Texas Tech 10-3. They crushed Oklahoma State 10-1, and they 10-run TCU 12-2. So they ran through the Big 12 by a score of 32-6 over the course of the weekend in Arlington. Impressive. Speaking of the Big 12, Arizona State came to Norman for a midweek 2 games, and those were split between those 2 teams. They did lose early this midweek on Tuesday to Southeastern Louisiana. They got blanked 3-0, but that's not really of much consequence tonight. Tonight, the thing that is of the most consequence is that they will send Cam Johnson to the mound. Y'all know Cam Johnson. Y'all were very aware of him when he signed with LSU and ultimately ended up with LSU out of IMG Academy as a real draft risk 2 years ago. He has a lot of physical gifts. You look at his measurables, 6'6", 255 pounds, and left-handed. That would look right at home on a Major League Baseball diamond. He throws hard. He's got a very, very strong arm. He's got a good changeup, and he will throw a quality slider as well. His problem when he got to Baton Rouge was that he couldn't throw it over the plate. He made 13 relief appearances at LSU. He threw 9 innings, but walks were a significant problem. So he transferred out, and he went to Oklahoma, and he didn't really carve out much of a role at OU. Similarly to his 20 2/3 innings at LSU, where he walked 22 and struck out 24, he went to Oklahoma and he threw 23 2/3 innings. He walked, that was at Oklahoma last year. He had 20 2/3 innings at Oklahoma. He walked 22 hitters and struck out 24. So he had issues throwing the ball over the plate last year, just like he did at LSU. So he didn't do much. Oklahoma had a very good pitching staff last year. Kyson Witherspoon was a stud at the top of the rotation. They had his brother in the number 2 slot, and it was a solid 3 rotation. And Cam Johnson didn't crack in. And they went out there this year to begin the season with Cam Johnson as their Friday night starter after 2 years in major college baseball of having basically no role. And he went out against Texas Tech in the opening weekend. He threw 6 innings of 1-run baseball, gave up 3 hits, only walked 3, and struck out 11. Then he went out against Coppin State, who is awful, but still. 5 innings, no walks, 7 strikeouts. Then he went out against Gonzaga, 5 innings, no walks, and 7 strikeouts. So all of a sudden, through 3 weeks, you're talking about 25 strikeouts against 3 walks. I don't care who you're facing. Like, you got to throw over the plate, and he did that. Against Santa Clara, he was good, 5 1/3 innings, 7 strikeouts, no earned runs, just 2 walks. Like, he had his command, he was locating, and he was pitching well through a month. And then he went out there on Friday night last week against a good Texas A&M offense. He walked 4 in the first inning. He walked 2 in the second inning. He came out for the third and walked another one. He had 7 walks in 2 1/3. That's the Cam Johnson that can show up. It's good stuff. It's swing and miss stuff. But it can be very, very erratic. So what shows up tonight? Well, I don't know Cam Johnson. I've never spoken to him. I don't even know if I've ever heard him in an interview, quite frankly. So I don't know what to make of his return to Baton Rouge. I don't know if he has a vendetta against LSU because it didn't work out here. I don't know if he cherished his time at LSU and just wanted a new start. I don't know if he really, really likes Jay Johnson or thought, man, this guy didn't want me to be here. Like, I have no idea. I don't know. Jay Johnson probably wanted a 6'5", 265-pound left-handed pitcher to be here. Maybe he just wanted a fresh start and there's no ill will. Maybe there is. Maybe he will feel a lot of pressure going back to LSU. Maybe he will use that as motivation. I have no idea. I don't know anything about the kid. But you do have to be aware that that is his nemesis, that he will walk the lineup. So that's a big, big storyline tonight. And, of course, that dovetails with Case and Evans as well. So that's their starting pitcher. But I want to talk a little bit more about them as a team, especially their offense. This is a team that statistically walks a ton. Like, they walk a truckload. Oklahoma leads the SEC in walks. Well, how did they get there? Well, one, they do draw a lot of walks. That's how you would generally get there. But I looked a little bit more closely today, and Coppin State went in there, and over a 3-game weekend, Coppin State got outscored 57-1. We've seen these weekends before where a team shows up, they're really bad, they're one of the worst teams in the country, and they just can't compete. They lost 22-1, 24-0, and 11-0. In Coppin State, I had to take out a pencil to do this math because I'm not all that bright. But they walked 14, 17, and 13 over 3 games. That's 44 walks in 3 games. So you get the picture. That's a big statistical outlier over the course of the rest of their games. You look at what they did against A&M last week. 8 walks is a big number. 5 walks, 4 walks. UT Arlington, 5 walks. Santa Clara, 6, 8, 7. Dallas Baptist, 3. I mean, the last 2 games of the Gonzaga series, they walked once and twice. They walk a lot. But the Coppin State series is a monster outlier there that really swells the statistics. Still, they did take those walks. They were selective in those at-bats, and LSU had a monster walk problem last weekend. So it does matter. It's something to look at. And Case and Evans had trouble throwing the ball over the plate last week. No doubt about it. He's got to do a better job of throwing the ball over the plate this week, or Oklahoma will make him pay for that. Now, how does Oklahoma make you pay for that? Well, they're not going to hit a ton of home runs. But what they do is run. They run and run and run. They've got 3 players with double-digit steals already. Camden Johnson, not Cameron Johnson. Camden Johnson is 18 for 19 in steals already. Talking about 21 games, he's 18 for 19. Trey Gamble's 11 for 11. Brendan Brock is 11 for 12. Jackson Walk has 9 steals. So you get the picture. Like, they're 65 for 70 in stolen bases. That leads the SEC. LSU has not played well defensively at catcher, both in blocking the ball and in throwing the ball. Now, a lot of that has been on balls put in play, swinging bunts and even drop third strikes, not necessarily stolen bases, where LSU's actually been okay to this point. Teams are only 14 of 19 against LSU in trying to steal against Aaron Beatty and Cerna. But throwing's been an issue, and Oklahoma's going to test that. And oh, by the way, tonight you start a right-hander. Tomorrow you start a right-hander. Saturday you start a right-hander. Your number 1 reliever, Devin Sheeran, right-handed. Your number 2 reliever, Gavin Guidry, right-handed. Your most used reliever, Maverick Rizzi, right-handed. You get the point. Like, LSU's a predominantly right-handed staff against a team that wants to run a ton with some catchers that have been iffy throwing the baseball. This is a huge key to this game. Because think about this. If I tie those 2 points together, how often OU walks? They lead the conference. How often they steal bases? They lead the conference. Okay, what do you say? Kason Evans is a 3rd inning. You come out there and you get 2 quick outs. Then you walk a guy. Now he steals 2nd. They've created a threat without ever putting the ball in play. And that's what they want to do. So you've got to guard against that. Now, to the point of the walks, you could probably guess this, but they did go nuts stealing bases against Coppin State. They stole 20 bases in 3 games. 20 bases in 3 games. And they were run ruling them. So you realize that they're only hitting 6 times. So they hit in 18 innings, they stole 20 bases. That's an outlier, but still, this is a team that wants to run. And they are going to try to run on LSU. I look back at their numbers against Texas A&M, played the Aggies in 3 games. They stole 6 bases, 3 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. It's what they want to do. So the identity of this Oklahoma team is rooted in speed. And they want to run. And the other thing that you have to, Jay Johnson mentioned this yesterday, and I'll reiterate it here. They want to run, and they will run when they get on base. But it's not just when they get on base. They hit the ball hard on the ground, you better make the play. And LSU has had some shaky defensive infield play to this point. First base has been a little bit shaky. Second base has been a little bit shaky. And third hasn't when Caraway's been out there. But John Pearson has been hitting better than Caraway. So the question is, what does Jay Johnson prioritize? Are you going to put John Pearson out there because you think he might give you something offensively? But will he bobble a ground ball and allow a runner to get to first base where that guy becomes a threat? Or do you want to go with Caraway, who's been clean defensively but hasn't hit? That's a question Jay Johnson has to answer today when you realize the team that you're playing. And Jay Johnson's very well aware of it. He met with the media yesterday and talked about how fast this team is. So ground balls in the infield, stolen bases, big deal. Walks are a big deal on both sides with Johnson on the Oklahoma side and then with Kason Evans on the LSU side. That's kind of a look at Oklahoma and LSU tonight from an Oklahoma perspective. Still plenty to get to with LSU, including one potentially key member of LSU's team this weekend. We'll get to it later on in the show. Our Thursday shows are brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. I was checking out my social media earlier this week, and I saw Chef Leighton Carbo over at Supper Club talking about the delivery they just got from Supper Club. And I tell you most weeks that the standard for prime is 9 on the IMF scale. So you're talking about select, choice, prime, beef. You hear that when you sit down at a restaurant, prime being the highest grade. 9 is the threshold there. The Sagrera delivery over to Supper Club today, this week, was north of 18. Double the standard of prime. He said, Chef Carbo said it was the best that they had ever gotten from Sagrera. That's the kind of quality you're getting from a local farm just north of Baton Rouge. So if you want that in your freezer, you want prime beef for steaks, for ground beef, chuck roasts, whatever it is that you're looking for, you can find that over at Sagrera Farm. Some of the best beef in the country, and it's right here in our backyard. It's actually in Sean Sagrera's backyard. It's in Baton Rouge's backyard as well. It's Sagrera Farms. They bring you our Thursday shows each and every week. We will step aside. When we come back, I saw something on ESPN today, and I went, I don't agree with that. We'll talk about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Boudreaux's Electrical Services. You know the next hurricane season's around the corner, right? And we know what that means for our part of the world, right? Maybe you decide there's a storm coming. You've been here long enough. You see kind of what the situation is. You want to stay at home. But there's a reasonable chance you're going to lose power, right? Not if you've got a Generac home standby generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical, right? Maybe you decide to evacuate, but you don't want to come back after an evacuation to a 98-degree house with a rotted fridge in a miserable living environment. We've all done that at some point. Not if you've got a Generac generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. Neil and Melissa have been doing this for 40 years. 40 years. They can have a fully employed Boudreaux's Electrical employee come to your home, install that generator. They're going to monitor it. They're going to service it. They're going to maintain it. They're going to make sure that when that storm season rolls around, your generator is ready to spring into action. Give them a call at 985-397-1562. That's 985-397-1562. You can contact their Gonzales branch as well at 225-300-9389. It's Boudreaux's Electrical Services. You can find them online at boudreauxelectrical.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Got a really good one going in the first game of the day in the NCAA tournament from Greenville, South Carolina. 9-seed TCU leads 8-seed Ohio State 60-59. Ohio State fell down double digits in this game, but they have clawed all the way back. TCU just got a 3-point play to take now a 2-point lead with a minute 45 to go in that one. Nebraska all over Troy 65-40 with 8 minutes to go in the second half. Louisville leads South Florida 31-22, and Wisconsin has an 8-point lead with 6 minutes to go in the first half over High Point. So that gets you caught up on the scoreboard from March Madness. Speaking of March, it is Colon Cancer Awareness Month. Colon cancer is very, very common, but preventable and treatable when it's caught early. That's the key. So screening can detect precancerous polyps before they turn into cancer. So if you're an adult, you're knocking on 45's door, or you've passed your 45th birthday, need to start potentially. Anyone with a family history of colon cancer may need to start screening earlier. You're experiencing symptoms like persistent abdominal pain, bleeding, or changes in some bowel habits. Don't delay the care. Even if you feel like you're healthy, screening is very, very important. Colonoscopy is the gold standard in screening, but there may be other options if you are low risk. Having an established relationship with your primary care provider can make all the difference. They can guide you on the right screenings at the right time. Ask about your personal risk, and early detection can save lives. Schedule an appointment, Ochsner.org/schedule, or through the My Ochsner app. That's Ochsner.org/schedule. That's our friends over at Ochsner. All right, I read something on ESPN.com today, and the headline was in reference to the Contenders. It says 2026 NFL free agency, big remaining issues for 20 contenders. And I thought to myself, 20 is a big number in the National Football League. You're talking about essentially 2/3 of the league. So that led me not to think about what are the issues for the contenders. It actually led me to go, well, who are the contenders in ESPN's eye? Because when I look at the South, before I ever laid eyes on this, I said, I feel like the Saints are a contender with the South. If you're gonna put division contenders, they seem to be that in my eye. So let's look. And I finally got a list of all the contenders here. And I looked at the NFC. And they had Carolina and Chicago, Detroit, Green Bay, the Rams, the Vikings, the Eagles, 49ers, Seahawks, Tampa, and Washington.
Okay, hold on. Did I just hear the Vikings?
You heard the Vikings.
With J.J. McCarthy and college, like they're contenders. Are they saying like contenders like they can win the Super Bowl?
I don't know. They don't define contender.
I'm about to say that's what I consider.
But the Vikings are in.
But you know, the first one was the Panthers was egregious to say like we're talking
they're contenders.
Teams that can see. They should have been more. Contenders is so vague. So what is your take on a contender when you hear that term?
All I know is that this is the group they gave me, and the Saints aren't in it. Okay. So that leads me to go down the rabbit hole of, okay, well, let's just look at the two teams in the Saints division that are labeled contenders here.
So the Bucs are there?
Yeah.
Okay, the Bucs are there. Okay. At least they're not saying the Falcons. Okay.
Yeah, no Falcons.
Okay.
And maybe you're just talking about teams that theoretically contended this past year,
Maybe.
even though the Panthers went 8-9.
Never was even sniffing the Super Bowl.
But, I mean,
let's just say playoffs.
I'm looking at the next season, and I'm comparing the Saints with Carolina to start. And I see a Carolina team that was 16th in the NFL in total defense last year. Not exactly a juggernaut on the defensive side of the ball. And if you look at their scoring defense, the Saints allowed 22.5 points per game. Carolina allowed 22.4 points per game. Difference of a tenth of a point. The Panthers scored 18.3 points per game last year. That's just not very good. The Saints scored 18.2. We know they were bad.
Yeah, we weren't that good.
They were bad for it's another tenth of a point.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, Bryce Young was there the whole year. He's in year 3. Tyler Shuck played half the year in his first year. So I'm looking at this data, and I'm like, well, they were about the same last year in terms of defense and offense. Bryce Young's probably not going to get a lot better. Tyler Shuck could get a lot better. And oh, by the way, the Saints swept the Panthers last year.
Yep.
So I don't know about that. Let's go to Tampa. Tampa lost 7 of 9 to end the season.
Super stinky.
Well, did Baker get hurt or something? Nope. Baker played 17 games. 17 games. Mike Evans, gone. Levante David, probably gone.
40.
You're talking about a team on offense with Baker playing 17 games and the Saints trotting out a group of the replacements, basically, who averaged 6.8 yards more than the Saints last year. 6.8 yards per game more than the Saints. Tampa was 20th in passing yards per game, 21st in rushing yards per game, 18th in points per game. They weren't very good on offense. You're talking about a defense that was worse than the Saints last year. The Saints allowed 22.5 points per game. The Bucs allowed over 24 points per game. The Saints were 9th in total defense last year. The Bucs were 19th. And you might say to yourself, well, did you look at the schedules? Tampa played a first-place schedule. The Saints played a fourth-place schedule. Guess what? The Saints play another fourth-place schedule coming up this year, thanks to losing in Week 18.
And Carolina gets that first-place schedule?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's the evidence here that these two teams are contenders and the Saints aren't? Because I can't buy the argument that this is last year's contenders brought forward because Washington's in there.
Yeah,
and they were terrible. So this, to me, is suggesting that they're saying the Saints aren't a contender when Carolina and Tampa are. I can't find a good argument for that. None. I'm not here to tell you that any of those three teams are on my list to make it to the Super Bowl right now.
Yeah.
I don't think the NFL MVP is coming from either one of those teams. I'm not wagering a single cent of my earnings on these teams emerging and going and winning the Lombardi. But, if we're just going to characterize teams as contenders and cut out only 12 teams in the league, why are we cutting out the Saints when we got Carolina and Tampa in there? I don't see any reason to do that. In fact, I would suggest the Saints are in better spot than either of those two teams because the Saints have so much ceiling above their head right now. Where's the ceiling above Tampa's head? They've had the same core for a few years. There is no, the ceiling. The Panthers played last year above the ceiling. They were on the roof last year. They can't possibly be any better than that. We know Bryce Young's not the answer. No way. Yeah, I know they won the division. They went 8-9. If Tampa doesn't completely vomit all over its uniform, they don't go to the playoffs. And that just may be who Tampa is now. I like the Saints team I saw in the last month. Well, it was against the last place schedule. Guess what? They got another one coming. Again, I'm not here to make the argument that the Saints are definitely going to win the division, that they're definitely the best team in the division. I'm not here to make the argument that they're in the same league as the Eagles and Seahawks and whatever team you want to lump in there right now. You want to throw Chicago or Green Bay in there, whatever. I'm not here to tell you they're definitely in that league. But I'm telling you, if you're going to put Carolina and Tampa in the league, then you got to keep coming. You have to keep coming. That's what I'm saying about this list. What do we think, Jordan?
No, 100%. At first, once I preferenced what a contender was because, the names on that list, there's a lot of teams there's no way you're not even putting that together to say they're contenders. But if you're going to include a team that the Saints swept, and then the Bucs, they probably should have swept them too, but that's another here nor there. But still, Shuck ended up getting them at the end of the season. So 2 teams that we saw flame out. I guess you want to say Carolina didn't flame out necessarily, but who's going to have a first-place schedule? The Bucs are going to have a way better schedule than the Saints. We're going to have a 4th-place schedule. We're bringing in a top 10 pick. Shuck, we'll see what year 2 looks like. I'm not going to sit there and jump on to say he's going to break out and be the next Joe Montana or something like that, but looking for Shuck to take another leap. The defense going to come along together. Year 2 with Staley. There's just no way that you can you can put Carolina because they won a division, but Tampa? There's nothing good going in about Tampa.
The Steelers
right now.
on this list.
The
That's
Steelers.
the AFC, I understand.
They
But
don't have a quarterback
they don't
right
have
now.
a quarterback.
We're about to say what?
They're a contender. I mean, maybe Aaron Rodgers comes back, but he's 103.
Come on, man.
So
Michael Pittman Jr. That's the move. That's the move right there.
At this point, they should have taken the word contenders out and just filled out the last 12 teams on the list.
Yeah.
Just say what the whole is for everybody. And if you're going to really do contenders, then cut it down to 8 teams.
Yeah, because 20 is ridiculous.
Because 20 is absurd. And when I saw that and I saw how many teams there were, they actually have a little thing at the top that has all the teams before you get into the division.
Oh, you just click which one?
And I was looking for NO, and I never saw NO. And I was like, and then I was like, CAR, TB.
No way.
MIN, PIT.
For real.
I don't think so.
Minnesota. Come on, man.
I don't think so. So, just interesting. It's confidence season. It's optimism season. We're here in Louisiana. Maybe I'm delusional, and maybe the team that we saw for the first 9 weeks is the team that we're going to see next year. I just don't think so. I think they've gotten a lot better. I think their quarterback's got an opportunity to be a really good player. And if you're going to lump Carolina and Tampa in there, you're going to need to put the black and gold in there as well. So we're chugging along here on Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. We'll come back. Joe Healy detailing the SEC weekend to come, including LSU and Oklahoma. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, Fabry Chevrolet GMC. Find them online at fabrychevrolet.com. They're on Highway 61 in St. Francisville. If you want to stop on by, they're open for you today. They're open for you tomorrow as well. If you want to take some time on a Friday, drive on up to St. Francisville. Awesome spot and a great inventory with great deals. Chevy Silverado's up to $11,000 off MSRP. GMC Sierra's up to $13,000 off MSRP. Tell them you heard about it at the Hunt Palmer Show and you want to hear about some of the great deals they have on trucks. They are happy to get you behind the wheel, let you test drive one today up there in St. Francisville. Maybe you're looking for an SUV. They've got Suburbans. They've got Tahoes on the Chevy side. You're looking for a GMC, Yukons and Denali's. They've got those as well. Fabry family's been in business here for 35 years. You know what you're going to get with them. Great customer service, fantastic buying experience. And now a new point on Highway 61 in St. Francisville. Fabry Chevrolet GMC. Check them out online at fabrychevrolet.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Jordan, what do you know about the Troy Trojans' ability to shoot three-pointers? How much information you got on that?
Not much. I just know they're supposed to bust people brackets.
Well, they need to make some threes because if they don't erase a 29-point lead in a minute and 47 seconds, I'm going to fall to 0-2 today.
Me too. I had Troy beating them.
I need him to hold Nebraska scoreless the last minute 47 and then hit 10 threes. How do we feel about that? No free throws.
I feel terrible because I had Troy beating Nebraska. They said Nebraska hasn't won a tournament game in forever.
Well, they're down 30. And TCU has beaten Ohio State. I had the Buckeyes. So I'm about to be 0-2, which is right on par with my general prognostications on this here radio program. So let's transition from that to our guy Joe Healy, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team Highway to Hoover podcast. He's with us on Thursdays. Joe, how are you?
Not too bad. I am 0-0 in my bracket. I made a decision about, 10 years ago that I would lose less money and I would be a lot happier if I just stopped trying to fill out a bracket. And so now I just watch the games and have fun and look for chaos. I found that has been a lot better for my mental health.
Well, you're right there on par with me as far as wins. I'll pass you eventually at some point. There are 63 of these games. I'm gonna hit one eventually, but I have not to this point. So we'll see. Let's talk baseball. Let's start on the home front. Do I need to hit the panic button with a sledgehammer? Do I need to have it handy? Do I need to just look into where a panic button is? What's the issue with the Tigers?
Yeah, I would start to at least make sure you know where your panic button is.
Why?
Yeah, just because. I mean, because I'm not really sure what this team. Let me try to be as blunt as I can about it. Like, I'm really not sure what this team hangs its hat on right now, and that kind of bothers me when you talk about how talented they are, because nobody doubts the talent. Like, you and I, if we went back and listened to some of the shows we did in 2024, I'm sure we would have a good laugh about how much we wrote off LSU. So any team this talented has the chance to flip a switch. But right now, they're not really throwing strikes in the bullpen. The starting pitching has been good, but you're not really getting great starts from Case and Evans at the front, which is kind of setting a sour note for the weekend. The offense outside of Jake Brown and Curiel has been kind of stuck in neutral. The defense has had its moments when it's been a little bit spotty. So I'm not, at least with some teams that are less talented than LSU, like, I kind of know where their bread is buttered. But right now, I'm not really sure exactly what this LSU team is supposed to hang its hat on. And that bothers me as much as anything else at this junction. And you and I have talked plenty about the other issues that have come up. But for right now, like, that's probably the newest thing I have to say on it, is just like, what are we supposed to be doing really, really well with this team? And I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the starting pitching in Nashville was the biggest problem, because they had been good for 4 weeks, but that's non-conference baseball. Let's a couple more on last weekend before we preview the weekend to come. I think the biggest series probably was in Fayetteville with Mississippi State and Arkansas. Really, really highly competitive series. What did you learn?
I learned that I think this is going to be another Arkansas team that is like so many others in that they're not perfect. I don't love the offense, and not just the bottom of the lineup, because we've talked about that. Like, that is a little bit of a glaring hole, but even the middle of it, they're just not as scary as they've been in years past. But I don't know that it matters for a couple of reasons. One is that they're pitching really, really well. They've got an ERA floating about 3 right now. But even beyond that, it's like this program just finds a way. But what I will say, and I was tipped off to this by an Arkansas media member, like, it's a little too early to read too much into RPI, but I do wonder if this is going to be one of those seasons like Arkansas had in 22, where they win a whole bunch of SEC games, but ended up being a 2 seed because the RPI wasn't there. Their RPI is floating around 70-something right now. And again, I don't want to get too wrapped up in that, but typically by now you're able to see some broad trends. And the fact that they've won as many games as they have, and have won some big games, obviously, and it's still sitting there that high, does worry me a little bit from an Arkansas standpoint.
LSU plays Oklahoma this weekend. They will play A&M here in about a month. So we want to go to that series, another one that was very highly competitive with a rubber game that was a 1-run game. What did you learn from A&M and Oklahoma?
I liked from Oklahoma's standpoint, they were able to win games in which they didn't get great starting pitching, because that was kind of my worry was, okay, this is cool that Cam Johnson seems better, and Cord Rager seems like a really mature freshman, and LJ Mercurius looks like a pitcher of the year candidate. But what happens when that's not going to be the case? Because they might be talented, but they're not that good. They're not as good as what we saw in non-conference. And sure enough, Cam Johnson walked 7. The other 2 guys aren't as good as they've been, and yet they still find a way to win that series. And maybe there's something to be said about A&M too. Maybe A&M has more of a ceiling than I've had previously thought. But I think the biggest thing for me was that Oklahoma can find a way to win when they don't get perfect starts on the mound, which was something I wasn't sure about before.
LSU will also play Florida and South Carolina. Obviously, Florida shut them out in the first 2 games and then run-ruled them in Game 3. Does that say more about Florida's pitching or more about South Carolina's overall product?
Yeah, sadly, I think I would love to take the positive spin of this, and I think Florida's pitching is really good, but I think it probably is more of the South Carolina end of it, just because how do you not win that first game when you hold Florida, a Florida lineup that I think is better than what they've shown? Like, how do you hold that lineup to no hits through 9 innings and 2 hits total and not win that game? It is just kind of inexcusable, to be honest. And then they lose the next one 3-0, and so it takes until Sunday to score 1 run for South Carolina, and it's just kind of a rough season all around for them there. So unfortunately, I have to be a little bit cynical here and negative and say that I think it has more to do with the struggles for South Carolina.
Let's go to this weekend. College Station, number 23 Texas A&M will face number 7 Georgia. Bulldogs beat Tennessee in dramatic fashion in the rubber game over the weekend. So how do you see that one in College Station between those two?
Yeah, tricky. That's probably the series that I have the least feel for, to be honest with you. I think Georgia is Georgia, but they're gonna. The most fascinating part of that for me is that is the question we've been asking so many times over the Wes Johnson era, is that can they beat Georgia when they're not playing at Foley Field? And to me, that's going to be the question there, because I saw some cracks in A&M last weekend where their starting pitching had also been very good during non-conference, and an Oklahoma lineup that I think is good but not great really kind of worked them a little bit. And so, yes, maybe Georgia doesn't hit 12 home runs in 3 games, but I think this is an offense that has a chance to put up some runs against A&M. And it looks like they have, whether it was Charlie Condon a couple of years ago or Rylan Zaborowski last year, it looks like Daniel Jackson's kind of that next guy for Georgia, where he's already has 14 home runs, could lead the country, and probably has got himself on some scouting radars with the season he's had so far. So, we can sit here and talk about all the, concerns we have about Georgia's model and whether or not that's really going to work to get them to Omaha and win national titles and all that stuff. But you can't really argue with the fact that, they continue to develop position players at a pretty impressive clip.
They certainly hit a ton. Ole Miss, not a handshake open to conference play. They started at Texas. A number 15 team, Kentucky team, is headed to Oxford this weekend, and Mississippi State is right around the corner. We know how good that team is. So how big a weekend is this for Ole Miss at home against Kentucky?
Yeah, I think it's huge because it feels like two teams that are in a relatively similar spot in the SEC pecking order. I mean, yes, we have Kentucky ranked, but we have Ole Miss just outside the rankings. If we ranked to 30, Ole Miss would probably be in the mix there. So they're pretty close ultimately. I think this is one of those series that if Ole Miss is going to be serious about hosting again, you really want this series. And as is so much the case with dealing with Kentucky, and I think this is an elevated version of, I don't think this Kentucky team's as good as the 24 team that went to Omaha, but I do think it is better than the 23 team that LSU handled in that super regional. But they do things pretty similar to that 23 team in some ways. And I'm a little bit dubious of Ole Miss being able to stop the running game for Kentucky. That's the thing that Ole Miss I don't think is doing particularly well. At this point, they tend to be, as is the case with some of these teams, Tennessee most famously, it's a bunch of power pitchers that have, leg kicks and violent deliveries and things like that, and catchers that aren't necessarily defense first guys. And that to me feels like a little bit of a fly in the ointment, is I do think Kentucky's going to be able to move the baseball against them. But Ole Miss's physicality is something Kentucky can't live with. So if you showed me the final scores of the series and the winning team's numbers are something like 9 or 10, I'm telling you Ole Miss won it. If the winning numbers are like 6, 5, or 4, that probably is good news for Kentucky.
Now let's talk about LSU and Oklahoma. Tiger fans know Cam Johnson. I talked about him in our first segment. We know that he's got great stuff and the walks can be an issue. So let's go to the next guy in line with LJ Mercurius. What have you liked about his year so far? Brilliant beginning, a little bit bumpy last week. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's really, really good. It was a weird season last year at UNLV where he wasn't in the rotation the whole way through. He jumped in part way through, but then was really, really awesome. He has really good command of his secondary stuff, and that's what stands out. I mean, his fastball is good. Don't get me wrong. It's got good velocity. He commands it pretty well, but he's got some secondary stuff that's put away. And when he's commanding it well, he's really, really tough. So I think while, yes, we got maybe a little bit of a version of him in non-conference that I think is not necessarily realistic for the rest of the season, I do think he's better than what he shown last week. And I think he's the best arm on this Oklahoma staff, even considering the better version of Cam Johnson. I just think LJ Mercurius is better.
How do you see the weekend going here in Baton Rouge?
Boy, you tell me, Hunt. Like it does feel like this is a little bit a home series for LSU against a team that's not going to just out talent LSU. Like, I don't want to be alarmist, but this feels like a must-win series, or a series like you've got to show something this weekend for LSU, because this is not a team that's going to come in here and say, well, even if LSU plays well, they could lose this series. Like, if LSU plays well in this series, I have a high level of confidence they're going to beat this Oklahoma team, which I think is a high floor, low ceiling outfit. Oklahoma is. But if you lose the series for LSU, like, it really does set off alarm bells about, like, how many of these SEC series can you expect to win if you continue to play this way? This
is the first of 6 games in the league at home for LSU. It's Oklahoma this week and Kentucky next week. The next 4 after that, in some order, I'm not exactly certain, but it's at Ole Miss, it's at Mississippi State, it's at Tennessee, and it's A&M at home. Those are the 4 in a row in some order. They've got to do some work over these next 6. And I would feel so much better if they would just go win a simple, boring 7-2 game with 2 homers and strike some guys out and not throw it all over the yard and have to rely on the other team throwing 4 pass balls like they did against Vanderbilt and walk a bunch of guys. Like, they haven't played what felt like a normal baseball game that they won in like 3 weeks since they left Jacksonville, and that's what I'd like to see at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I've said that a bunch about LSU. Is like they've had precisely one weekend where they look like the team we thought they could be, and that was in Jacksonville, and that's been a long time ago now.
Way to Hoover podcast, D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Package, also all weekend long in the mornings. Weekend waypoints. He is Joe Healy, is with us on Thursdays. Thanks, Joe.
All right, see you, buddy.
Always enjoy our conversations with Joe Healy. LSU in Oklahoma tonight at 7 o'clock. It'll be on ESPNU this evening from the box. You can listen to it on our sister station, Eagle 8.1. You'll have a pregame at 6:30 with Chris Blair on the call. We'll come back and close out hour number 1 next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com. HighlandIG.com is that website. Look, if you're a business owner and you know what the premium is that you're paying for insurance, but you're not real sure what your EPL policy does or if you have one, or not certain if you need cyber insurance, what should my directors and officers policy say? Well, do I need higher limits on my umbrella over my general liability, or what's my building valuated? How do we come to that number? There are a lot of questions that go into an insurance program from a commercial perspective, and not all agents are experts in dealing with them. A lot of them just try to get in the door and show you the lowest price and see if they can win it, and then they just leave it alone for the next 10 months until renewal time. That's not going to happen at the Highland Insurance Group. If you want an agent that's going to take care of your policy 365 days a year and make sure that your business is covered under all those complex little clauses in an insurance policy, the Highland Insurance Group is who you need to talk to. Jonathan Carbo and his team are top-notch. I've spoken to them on numerous occasions and could not feel more comfortable with their technical expertise. That's why we endorse them here. It's the Highland Insurance Group. You can find them online at HighlandIG.com, HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge, swingeasygcbr.com, swingeasygcbr.com. You can go to the website, but that's not going to be near as much fun as actually going to Swing Easy Golf Club. That's what you need to do. Go by and see him on Segan at Perkins. You can turn on the driving range setting and work on your game. Always a great time to do that. You can also have some fun. That's what I like to do there. I've got a tournament coming up on Memorial Day weekend, so I might spend some time on the driving range function at Swing Easy, but it's more fun to go play Pebble Beach. More fun to go play Cypress Point. More fun to go play where they play that tournament next month and give out the jacket at the end. That course is on there too. You can play those famous holes, 11, 12, 13. Play the whole course, and you can card a score. Bring your friends. Play by yourself. They'll bring you a whole bucket full of ice, cold beers, and seltzers. They got wine there as well. You can listen to some tunes. They got a turtle box in every single bay. They got comfortable seating, and you can watch the basketball on the TV while you're in there with your friends, hanging out, playing some golf. It's a great place to kill some time, to work on your golf game, to socialize, to entertain clients. It's just a great spot. Go by and see them on Segan at Perkins at Swing Easy Golf Club. They're online at swingeasygcbr.com. Scoreboard update from the NCAA tournament. Wisconsin, a 2-point lead on High Point at halftime. That's a 12-5 game. A lot of folks really high on Wisconsin. Heard a lot of buzz about the Wisconsin-Arkansas potential collision course. But High Point looking to put a little fly in that ointment with a 2-point deficit at the half. Louisville is up on South Florida by 8 points with 17.5 minutes to go. 2 games are final, and as I mentioned in the last segment, I lost them both. I had Troy, the 13, beating Nebraska. They only lost by 29, so pretty good call by me. They did not lose by 30, so that's a pretty good call by me. And then you had TCU holding off Ohio State. The Buckeyes were down 15 at the half, won the second half by 13, but TCU gets the 66-64 win, so they will move on to face the 1 seed. Duke is what you're looking for in the next round. How are we feeling over there?
I mean, look, I had TCU, but I'm not going to do well if South Florida doesn't come out with this W. Louisville, Michael Brown is out for this game. He might be out for the tournament. So it's like, how are you, South Florida not? Everybody hyped up South Florida like they're going to handle Louisville. But even
their
though
coach is taking calls. You see, he's going to Syracuse, all this kind of stuff.
So I'm like, okay, well, Michael Brown's not going to play. Easily South Florida, and they're making me look like a fool. I already look like a fool thinking Troy was going to keep Nebraska for stop getting their first tournament win. You know what? This is why I can't believe people put money on this.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
I've never won 1 cent in a bracket challenge. I have been at this for gotta be 25 years.
Okay.
Will I ever win a cent at a bracket challenge?
Probably not. Like, this is...
There's only like 40 people in my group. You would think if I do this for 60 years, I would probably hit it once.
Nah, man, this stuff is impossible.
I actually did this year a ridiculous, like, superstitious thing.
Okay.
I was logged in. My wife her username is our Hulu TV, Disney Plus, ESPN subscription. It's all bundled under her name. So when I input the bracket, it was like Alyssa's bracket, and I just kept it as Alyssa's bracket. So my name's not even in the group. It's all my like guy friends. I got a text from a buddy today that said, "You didn't put a bracket in." I go, "Put it under Alyssa's name." I'm 0 for 20. I'm 0 for 25 years. Let's see if the blind luck of my wife can show up, which she didn't pick it. I did, but I'm 0 for 2, so that's a good thing.
Sometimes you got to shake it up. So I totally get that. Sometimes you just got to do something different. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results?
If you're looking to watch some hoops later tonight, McNeese playing Vanderbilt at 2:15. You got Arkansas on the floor against Hawaii. I saw Jimmy has the Rainbow Warriors tonight in his Otter Locks.
I'm scared.
VCU in North Carolina, that's a good one at 5:50. I'm more so looking towards the late night slate, like really late night, not even A&M St. Mary's, which I'll be paying attention to at 6:35. But like LSU is playing Oklahoma at 7. So that game is not going to end until 10. So I got late night Kennesaw State Gonzaga. It's a 14-3. And I got Idaho Houston a 15-2.
Domination.
I'm not looking. I don't have high hopes at what I get to watch tonight, but I will be watching. I was hoping maybe there'd be a matchup that was a little closer. St. Louis, Georgia is an 8:45 tip. I'll get to see a little bit of that as well. That's the closest matchup. Georgia's 2.5-point choice there.
That's gonna be a good game.
I've got St. Louis. I thought St. Louis is really good. I was surprised they were a 9 seed. They're 28-5. I don't think Georgia's that good, so we'll see how that goes. I have St. Louis in my bracket. Means lay all you got on Dogs money line. We'll come back. Let's talk about LSU, who's playing Oklahoma tonight in baseball. I previewed Oklahoma in the first segment. You can catch that on demand if you're looking for it. Let's talk Tigers after National Headlines and Sports Center. Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
First American Bank and Trust. First American Bank and Trust. Looking for the website, you can find it, FABT.com. That's pretty simple, right? FABT, First American Bank and Trust. But I'd recommend you just walk in, because if you're in Southeast Louisiana, there's one close. There's 25 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana. That gives them two things. One, a uniquely local feel. You're going to get a local representative. There are going to be local people making decisions locally if you bank with First American Bank and Trust. That's one, but also it's not just a mom and pop shop right down the corner. No, 25 locations. They've got the capability to handle your commercial loan. They've certainly got the capability to handle your personal loan. They've been at this for 116 years in Southeast Louisiana. No matter where you are, up the I-12 corridor, down the bayou, Metairie, just outside of Baton Rouge, First American Bank and Trust is here to help you out. First American Bank and Trust.